the internal contradictions of the economic program of Mr. Trump, then you'll see that this is what I've just told you is all over the place. Not just with tariffs, but with deporting immigrants and so on. You know, the secondary consequences here ought to make any rational government stop. And the fact that this government isn't stopping, well, draw the conclusion. Let me try to illustrate the contradictions, internal craziness of what is being proposed. And I'm going to do that in two ways. I'm going to use what we in economics call supply and demand analysis, a very simple-minded approach we teach students as a beginning to understanding economics. And then I'm going to also use the Marxian economics idea of surplus, which gives you insights that the supply and demand apparatus doesn't. Okay, the president says, and has already in the first weeks of his administration, illustrated dramatically that he is going to deport undocumented immigrants, of which the Homeland Security Department of this country says we have somewhere around 12 million, 10 to 15 million, somewhere in there. Okay, let's take a look at what this might mean. Mostly these are undocumented immigrants, are young people of working age. Yes, some of them bring children when they come, but most don't. And some of them bring their elderly, but most don't. These are young men and women who can travel through the desert and take the hardships that are involved in coming here for many. So they arrive here and they take the worst jobs. And by worst jobs, I don't just mean those that are poorly paid, although that's the majority of them. I mean jobs that are dangerous, jobs that are irregular, jobs for employers that are highly unscrupulous much of the time. And the reason they have those jobs is because, unlike a native-born worker, they will never go to the police to complain if they're made to work without protective gear, or they're made to work too many hours, or they're made to work without being given the pay that they were promised when they undertook the job. Employers know that they can get away with this because they've been doing that forever, for time immemorial, which means that the immigrant is particularly profitable as an employee because you can rip them off, basically. And that's one of the reasons that the United States has always welcomed employees, because the employers knew you could do things with them you couldn't otherwise. I could go on. You also cram these people into the worst neighborhoods with the lousiest housing, again, because they cannot and will not complain. They will not demand what is legally available to them for fear that it will blow their cover and they will be hassled by the police. The police don't treat them very well, again, for the same reasons, and so on. So, I'm not going to mention what it means to target these people, many of whom have spent years at the bottom of the jobs pyramid in the United States. What it means exactly, ethically or morally, to pick them up off the street, put them in shackles, which is being done now, and dropping them in Mexico or Colombia or wherever you can impose that. How this squares with Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or any other religious system I know of, I leave to the mysteries of how human beings are religious. Extraordinary. But I'm not going to focus on that. Here's the supply and demand. You are reducing the supply of labor. You're literally taking people who had offered and delivered labor effort, brains and muscles, 8 hours a day or more, across the United States. Millions of them are being withdrawn from the labor market. So the supply of workers is being cut. You know, if you're going to get rid of 10 million people, it's going to make an impact. On the other hand, you're going to impose tariffs, meaning that goods produced abroad will no longer be purchased by Americans because they become more expensive. Mr. Trump has said, and by the time this airs, he may well have imposed 25% tariffs on both Canadian and Mexican goods. And again, I'm not,
Wow.
That's what he said. And he had promised to do that earlier, so they're consistent. That violates the treaties that were initially signed by Mr. Clinton, the NAFTA, and then rewritten and re-signed by Trump himself in his first presidency with a new name. But it's basically a common market between the United States, Canada to the north, Mexico to the south, and it meant that goods could move between them without tax, no tax being applied by any of the three countries to any of the other. He's abrogating that. He's not having a conference to discuss it. He's not having meetings with the leadership to talk. He unilaterally abrogating, which is the politest way you can put this, violating would be another term, this treaty with our two neighbors. Interesting move.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to assume it goes through in one form or another. The United States is the major market for both of those countries. Therefore, this is a big blow to them because they're going to see the demand for their exports to the United States drop because an American has to pay his own government, the American government, the tariff, the tax, and that makes it more expensive in the manner I just went through with the electric car from China. So it's going to hurt them. And Mr. Trump never discusses the hurt done to them, deals with them as if they're bad people, and says this is all done because they allow fentanyl to come through their countries into the United States. Notice, the bad guy is the one who allows the movement, not the country.